Yeah, it's a good story, to tell you the truth. Hey, everyone. Andy Hall here with Tobin Templeman. Tobin, there seems to be a crisis with birds
Yeah,
at your
it seems
place.
like they don't know where they're flying. We've just had two birds here recently just fly into the windows over here.
So, is it the same window?
No, no. One's a window that's on the door, and the other's on the front of the building.
That's odd. That's odd. Jesse Bear, what's up? I think Jesse.
Hello.
Jesse might. Hey, how you doing?
Hello, Jesse.
I am gonna pop out. I'm having a technical issue I have to figure out.
Okay. Well, good luck.
I'll be right back. My
Okay.
headphones aren't connecting for some reason.
You
Be
sound
right back.
good. Well, there you go. Technical issues. Once again, it's one of the joys of doing a live show, right?
Yep.
So
Just
here's
gotta
another question.
Go with the flow.
I am intrigued by this bird issue. Do you think it's the same kind of bird?
No,
No.
one of them was a cardinal, and the other one. This was a little guy. I think it was possibly the mockingbird or like a finch.
Oh, a finch, huh?
It's bigger than a finch, though. Mm.
I think you should always have a friend who knows something about birds, just in case of these bird-related emergencies, you know? Whenever I think about finches, and I know nothing about birds, everyone, but whenever I think about finches, I think about Charles Darwin on the Galapagos Island looking at birds, about finches' beaks, about how the adaptation of bird beaks or finch beaks to whatever they're eating, basically. And I guess there's a lot about finches in that book, in Darwin's writings.
Yeah, there's a lot of life over there in the Galapagos Islands.
Yeah, there's a lot of ecotourism going on over there. I was talking to the girlfriend about this, I don't know, a while back, and she's like, we should really go over there and see what's going on before it gets destroyed. And I'm like, you understand that by going over there, because this is what makes me so popular, by the way, everyone, it's like, by just going over there actually helps destroy the environment, right? Because destroying, the Galapagos, when you have too much tourism, it's gonna mess things up. Yeah, so that's what I do. This is what I'm like in relationships. I just kind of wear them down, Tobin. Wear them down.
Yeah, actually, this past week, I have been kind of traveling around the world with this guy named Indigo Traveler, and he goes to he's been visiting the places along the equator, basically. Parts of Africa and like Saudi Arabia and India. He even went to North Korea.
Oh wow.
And it's been a trip, because he's not just going to the places that are real nice. He's not showing you 5-star places. He's going into like the rural areas and like the city life, getting with the people. And it's been a really big trip. Like, it's been cool being able to sit in my room and go on this little journey.
Yeah, I could see that. What's up, Jesse Bear? I see that you're back with us.
Yeah, sorry about that. My headphone was working as a mic, but I couldn't really. It sounded like you guys were a million miles away.
Oh,
but
well,
I fixed it.
Awesome.
So, what are you talking about, Tobin? I missed part of it while I was fixing my technical issues.
Well, I was saying something about a new channel that I had started watching, because Andy was talking about how traveling is kind of part of the problem, with environmental problems.
Yeah. What started that off was that my girlfriend was talking about going to the Galapagos Islands to do a little bit of ecotourism before it gets destroyed. And I'm like, well, you understand that one of the reasons why the Galapagos is getting destroyed is because of ecotourism. And that started this conversation. Actually, I'm looking at the channel that you mentioned right now, Indigo Traveler.
Yeah.
This guy travels quite a bit. Yemen, Afghanistan, Libya. Yeah. He just doesn't go to the tourist. I don't need to go to like a 5-star hotel, but I need to feel like I'm going to be safe, mostly. Mostly.
Yeah. See,
Well, that
and
goes back. Sorry,
that's
Kevin,
one
I
of
was
the
just
things. Oh, I'm sorry.
We're bad at this talking over each other thing. I was just gonna say that goes with Andy's first rule is not getting hurt for all things.
What were you gonna say, Jesse Bear?
That's all I was gonna say.
Okay.
I'll let you.
It's back to you, Tobin.
Yeah, I was just gonna add a little bit that and that's what he's trying to do is promote people to travel and to these places that are the least traveled.
I don't know, man. North Korea sounds like, in terms of places that I don't want to go, I'm not philosophically against the idea, but see, that was my phone just slipping off. But North Korea, what was the last story? It was about some high school kid who I think was a high school kid. This is a couple of years ago now, who took a poster off the wall of a hotel, and he ended up with brain damage. He was seized by the police in North Korea, and then he eventually came back to the States. But the man, he had serious brain damage, and I forget the name of the poor kid. But yeah, it seems like a rough neighborhood. Yeah.
They basically it boiled to a point to where like the family over here in the US was trying to get their son back, and they were like, no, they had him for a very long time.
Yeah, dude.
And they basically slowly beat him until the point to where it got to the point where the family was able to get their kid back, but when they got him back, he was roughed up pretty bad.
Yeah, he had brain damage. I remember reading that. He had serious brain damage too.
And
I don't think you could pay me enough to go to North Korea.
Yeah. No. I don't think so either. They would just have to do a simple internet search for me, and they go, "You're going to jail."
Well, and from what I understand from the journalists I've seen do like investigations on North Korea, if you do go, you are so incredibly highly controlled while you're there. They'll take they could take your passport if they wanted to, because they hold all the cards. You're only allowed to go and talk to people they allow you to talk to. So even if you go over there, are you really even getting the real experience that you might get if you go to an actually more free country? I feel like the most realistic experience you'll get as far as North Korea is talking to someone that's escaped.
If you want to get that whole Stalinist prison system society, then North Korea is the place for you. If you have some kind of real urge to see what a real authoritarian government is like, sure, travel there. That could be considered to be the real experience.
There's a series, I can't remember if it's on Amazon Prime or Netflix, but it's Dark Tourism. And it's this guy that goes to places like that. I think he also went to another place that's got a similar authoritarian, I think it's Uzbekistan.
Okay, yeah.
And their leader is, from what I saw, major narcissist. He has like a ton of Guinness Book World Records for like biggest indoor Ferris wheel, because he's trying to bring attention to his country. And like biggest Marvel statue or something along those lines. Biggest gold statue, like all these random things.
Yeah.
And but the dark tourism goes over a lot of weird and dangerous places like that. I think they also at one point go to the catacombs in France.
Sure.
So it's like morbid stuff, but also like scary stuff.
Right.
Like super authoritarians that I personally would be more afraid of going to a place like that than the catacombs where there's just bones.
Yeah, I can handle catacombs. That's not a problem. And you're right about that. For skeptics who don't believe in ghosts, right, or liches or zombies, I think that's an okay place. But going to like Uzbekistan, for an example, just to see the world's largest indoor Ferris wheel, I don't know if that's a big draw.
And the funnier part that cracks me up is like the guy does all this stuff to get attention, but then it's really hard for tourists to go because ultimate control must be had at all times.
This is the nature of these authoritarian regimes. I mean, when you look at our system, right, or so-called free systems like republics and democracies, you say, wow, what a stupid system that is. What kind of poor choices are they making? But then you look at the authoritarian systems and you're like, wow, I thought I knew what stupid was. But that is a whole nother level of insanity in these authoritarian states, because there's no one to pump the brakes. There's no one to tell the leader, hey, maybe you shouldn't be doing those kind of things, right?
Well, and the sad part of that just existing in general is I think sometimes it makes people in societies like, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, places where it's not as bad, but we obviously need to improve. They're sometimes like, well, at least it's not that. Well, it could be worse. And that kind of thinking screws everyone because no, it should all be better.
Yeah. I agree with you. There's probably not, and this is definite, that there isn't enough emphasis here in the States about how Western Europe, how the Nordic countries operate, right? How functional governments operate. So you're right. There is a danger of looking at these totalitarian or semi-free societies and say that, well, at least we're not them, and then don't change.
Yeah, that's one thing I was like, with this other channel, I was kind of wanting to see some of those countries, but I don't think he's going to go there because he's more about like these poor countries. But I'm now curious though, because I've seen quite a bit now. Like I've been to the places, there's countries where like, if you see women, they're only dressed in black, they're wrapped up in black, and they're herding the goats. And you might see them doing that. You might see a womanly figure. But all the rest of the time, it's like all dudes playing soccer out in some dusty, I don't know. It's crazy.
Well, I'm just looking at his channel now, the overview of his channel, and he's in Nigeria. And for people who don't know, Nigeria is two different societies, basically. You have the northern Islamic section of Nigeria, and then you have basically what's considered to be like the Christian part of Nigeria, which is by the coast. And that creates a lot of tensions in that society. And for people who don't know, is that Nigeria's population is still booming, and its population is going to be larger than the United States population, I think, within 10 or 20 years. It is a society, it is a country that has innate contradictions to it, and I don't know how it's going to be resolved, to tell you the truth. What were you going to say, Tobin? Did you see some of those videos?
Oh yeah, I've seen those all. It's mind-boggling. Like they're not only growing on the land, they're growing out on the sea. Like they have this huge ghetto that it just expands for miles and miles down this coastline, and all their sewage, all their waste, they just go right in the water.
Yeah.
It is like some of the worst living conditions that are on that channel. Like I've pretty much seen almost everything on his channel, but it is some of the worst living conditions.
And
I've seen.
it's no surprise that the government there, the Nigerian government, is dealing with terrorism, right? You have Boko Haram, in the south, and then you think, and I believe there are, Islamic terrorist groups up in the north too. So they have a lot of problems over there, and hopefully they'll be able to navigate them. Climate change isn't helping, right? Climate change isn't helping, because the drier areas get drier, the wetter areas get wetter in the south, and it's just a mash. I don't know how they're going to be able to resolve everything for the people of that country.
In a societal standpoint, and I can't remember which country it was, but I was watching documentaries about how LGBT people are treated in different parts of the world, and there were a couple of countries they visited where, because of that, like you said, the Islamic and the Christian, more or less, it's fundamentalism.
Yeah.
In a lot of African countries, unfortunately, there is, because of that, there's like ridiculous amount of hate crimes.
Yep.
And I remember they were covering one country where they were actually trying to make being LGBTQ plus a actual crime.
Yeah.
Or having homosexual sex a crime. And I forget how much jail time, but there was a certain party that was trying to make it a death sentence.
Yeah, that was in Uganda. Uganda's, I believe it is in Uganda, and a lot. There are evangelical groups who target, governments like in Uganda and try to influence their policies. And if it wasn't for many Western countries putting pressure on Uganda, saying that if you pass this law, we're just going to take away, all of our support, they would have passed it. It was because of a lot of pressure that they didn't pass the death to LGBTQ people law. Yeah. It's a sad case over there, but it's an example of what happens when you have religion just really growing wildly in what amounts to a failed state, or a state that has a very weak central government. Yeah, and there was a guy from a right-wing minister here in Massachusetts who was pretty involved in the shenanigans, the right-wing Christian craziness in Uganda, and I forget what his name is.
I don't know. I know in the documentary I watched, they interviewed a local preacher who was like a celebrity, kind of like more or less a megachurch leader.
Yeah.
In you said Uganda. I cannot remember for the life of me which country, because I get confused. There's so many in Africa, and I don't want to misspeak. But some of the ideas that I've heard of, like American megachurch leaders even put out, of like all these ridiculous things of what happens if you happen to be in a homosexual relationship, and like, oh, they're getting worms and they have fire in their butts, and like they all seem to focus on gay men.
Oh yeah.
Which I find a little bit like not just sexist, but also kind of hilarious, because like, wow, dude, you're really obsessed with other people's butts.
Yeah. There's a lot of obsession. There's a lot of obsession amongst right-wing fundamentalist men over men's butts. I totally agree with you on that, Jesse Bear. It's almost as if they want to get in deep personal contact with those butts.
Yeah, it's got a little closet vibe to me.
Yeah, a lot of closet vibe. I'll tell you, when I was I have this joke that my dick figured out that I wasn't a Christian before I was. And it did. It was like, hey, this whole really literalist thing you got going on, really, or this whole theology you're working with. It's not really working for us down here. And so yeah.
Now, I have a question for Tobin because I haven't looked at the channel you were speaking about. But does this guy just do like just tourism, or is there like a savior complex going on with it as well? Just because some travel things I've watched, they'll be like, "Oh, it's just travel, and we're gonna show you what it's like," but then they also try to like, because they have money from what they're doing, they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna save the people here," because you were mentioning people being lower income in some of the places.
There has been some times where he's done some fundraisers. He sets it up to where people can donate to these, like we're just talking about Nicaragua, or he helped get some funding to do a place, an orphanage for kids. But it's, I think like his overall mission really on the channel is just to kind of show you the places that are safer to travel, that are you know, the places that you wouldn't think you could go but you can go, you know, like he's trying to get people to travel more, I think, because it helps their economies.
Wow.
That seems positive, because I always worry about toxic tourism where it's when it's people from the United States, they're trying to an example is like teenage mission trips, and then they do the whole white savior thing. Whereas what Tobin's saying, this guy is doing a positive, because if you're helping, you know, create an orphanage or help an orphanage, that's actually a positive to the community. Tourism is a positive to the community. So that sounds actually great, which is very refreshing.
I like the way he talks. I think he's very secular. Like he will say some data. He will tell you some statistics, like on religion in that country or whatever. But it's not like, there's not really that type of language like we're gonna save these people or anything like that. And I just like the way he also interacts with people. Like when he's in places where there's a lot of people asking him for money, he just keeps on going. He says hi, he's cordial, but he's not like, he's also trying to show you how you can travel safely. Like he talks about not going down dark alleys at nighttime and things like that. He goes over some safe traveling stuff, and I don't know, it's been an interesting channel to explore.
Yeah, it sounds it, dude.
I'm just still so surprised it's such a positive thing from what Tobin's telling us. It's actually like legit.
Oh, that is interesting, Jesse Beer, because a lot of suggestions, and I'm sure that people in the chat, people who are watching, have experiences that you get a recommendation, and then you for a channel or a book or I don't know, a show, and then you watch it and like, this is just a pile of crap. It's like we are going to see Hamilton. We're going to go see the musical Hamilton in New York over the weekend. We're going to New York. No show on Monday or Tuesday, by the way. Unfortunately, we're going to be off traveling. And a lot of the times when I see musicals, I just get angry. And that, you know, like the last thing I saw, and this is before the pandemic, it was Wicked. And I think, and my kids were with me when I saw it, and we had an interesting discussion about genocide and the Nuremberg trials afterwards, because I would say the Wicked is somewhat implicitly saying that genocide's not that bad. That's what I think. I think that's the message it's saying. Because you see the wizard say, I'm starting to go on a rant. I'm going to pull myself back. I'm going to pull myself back because I could go on a rant about Wicked, but I'm not. I'm going to restrain myself.
I have questions. Like I'm not completely familiar with Wicked.
Yeah, I'm here for this rant.
Okay, so Wicked, it's a story of the Emerald City, the Wizard of Oz, before the Wizard of Oz, before Dorothy showed up, right? So it's about the Wicked Witch's character arc and how she became the Wicked Witch. And part of it is how the Great Wizard, basically, one of the plot points, one of the storylines is how the Great Wizard, Oz, right? The Great Wizard basically conducted what amounts to a cull of animals that could talk, right? So these are conscious creatures, and there's basically a cull of them, basically put to the sword. And yeah, right, dude, right? I mean, I'm looking at Tobin's face right now. And so, and the punishment for the wizard, because of course they got to keep the wizard, right? Because he's in the Wizard of Oz. He's in the next story. This is just a prequel. And so they just had him like a slap on the wrist and flying away or doing something like that, right? And going, if there was a leader who was responsible for who knows how many of his citizens, right, or subjects, conscious, aware creatures being put to the sword, I say bring out the fucking
just broke your own rule.
Bring out the freaking guillotine. And let me tell you, that was a very shortened rant about Wicked. When I saw it at the time, I was just like, because you see something like that, and it's important to point out, especially when you have kids around. It's like, look, I don't know if you're aware of what messages you're getting or what, but people engaged in suicide, in genocide, dictators, you just don't give them a slap on the wrist. It was a learning moment, I felt, to talk about things like the Nuremberg trials after World War II, where people, where Nazis were put on trial, and some were put to death, some were just imprisoned for life. So yeah.
That's interesting.
Crazy.
I'm sorry, I'll be quiet now because but yeah, it pops me off, man. I just pop off about that kind of stuff.
So that's interesting. I remember when I was in high school, Wicked was like the hot thing for all the kids to like go see on summer vacation, and I never really felt interested to even go see it, just because the premise seemed silly to me. I'm like, a Wizard of Oz prequel, like, let's not. And to hear your perspective, wow.
Some of the music is great, don't get me wrong, right? Some of the music is great, but what the heck, man, right? And I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this, right? So, and it's about representation. In the original movie, of course, they had little people playing the role of Munchkins, right? And so, I don't know how they decided to thread this needle, but they didn't have little people playing Munchkins in the musical, and I don't know if that was because they didn't want to make them. That was a choice, but I thought that was odd too. But that was totally secondary to the whole genocide issue. Yeah. And now I feel like I should do a video about how much Wicked's like sucks ass. Now I feel like I should.
I would watch it.
Oh, thank you.
I've seen a couple things on Broadway over the years, but nothing that left me feeling angry. Like, I saw Jersey Boys most recently before the pandemic, and that was very entertaining, especially with my mom, considering half of the show is curse words, because Jersey Boys.
Yeah, Jersey Boys seems like a nice bit of entertainment, right? It's a bunch of songs.
It was a bunch of songs from it's biographical, but it's also obviously exaggerated here and there for artistic reasons.
Yeah.
But it was nice. There wasn't anything horrible. It's like, oh, some of these guys made some really bad choices and they got in trouble. That's life.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen it in person, but I've seen video of Avenue Q, and that's got to be my favorite all time. And if you don't know what Avenue Q is, go watch it somewhere.
Yeah, we saw that a couple of years ago, I think. Yeah, in New York. The Book of Mormon, that's right, John Hudson. If you haven't seen the Book of Mormon's pretty fun. Done by the South Park guys, of course. And,
that's one I still have to see.
Worth your time. One of the things that I came away with it is how odd it was for the Church of Latter-day Saints to having ads in the playbill, right? Advertising their church while they're being mocked on stage. It's like, if that doesn't sum up the species in the insanity of faith, I don't know what does.
Oh, they don't understand. They made themselves a bigger meme by doing that.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I would love to see the marketing research on that, if there was any marketing research about, I mean, is any press good press at that point? So, if there are, let's say, and it's a numbers game, I imagine, right? So if you have, I don't know how big a Broadway show is in terms of people in the seats. Let's say there's like maybe 200 seats, just for the sake of argument. Maybe if they get like 2 people who are interested in the LDS church after that, maybe it's worth it for them. I don't know. Maybe that's how cults work. I don't know.
I wonder if maybe somebody in there, because I assume they have to have a marketing team, because I remember commercials when I was little about the Book of Mormon being on TV. I wonder if they were hoping social media would actually get it out more, because people would be so like taken aback and laughing that they had put an ad in the playbill that they would take a picture and post it. Maybe as I'm sure it has their website on it, because everyone has a website, that they somebody out of curiosity would because it's on social media, they would go to the website, and then maybe they'd get 0.5% of the people that happen to do that. And that's still a net gain.
Oh yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, true enough. Yeah, that's a good point, Jesse Bear.
Excuse me.
Certainly. Take care, John Hudson.
Here, John.
So how are you feeling these days, Jesse Bear, anyway?
I'm okay. I'm a little flustered today, but it has nothing to do with my health. It's I had mentioned one of my kids is having medical issues right now in the chat a couple days ago. And I'm still trying to deal with our very broken medical system. And my kid needs an urgent appointment to a specialist. Try not to give my kid's health history away, but they have need an urgent appointment to a specialist. And the pediatrician told me they were on the phone for hours and hours yesterday, I don't know how to put it, because like they weren't arguing with them, but they were being very strong worded that my kid couldn't wait until April, because my kid is dealing with obviously a medical issue. They are in pain, and the pediatrician was advocating, and they specifically told me on the phone yesterday, they're like, this is just not adequate care. The system is so broken. And it just made me think of all the times I've talked with, right-wing people, and, since I was a kid, been like, look, we need a national healthcare system. This isn't fair. People need access to care. And they're like, oh, well, we'll have death panels and you'll have to wait for so long. Mofo, we wait. Yeah. We already wait. Please tell me what would change.
Yeah.
And please tell me how, if there's an urgent need in the majority of countries with a, single payer system, the urgent gets slid to the front.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen now. Now it's, well, you're paying me, this is a for-profit system, so I have to go with who paid me first, or who's going to give me the most money, or whatever capitalistic BS.
Yeah, and the thing is about a lot of countries that have single-payer healthcare system, if you have the finances, if you have the funds, and you can buy secondary insurance, you can buy insurance to supplement that. So it's not an either or. I mean, if suddenly we all had universal healthcare, the rich would still be able to get to the front of the line and get their healthcare before the rest of us. So if that's what they're concerned about, yeah, they have nothing to worry about.
The sad thing is I've had most of those conversations with people that are middle class, and it's like,
Yeah.
but this what you're thinking against your own interests, and yeah, it's just
You're
frustrating.
Yeah, it's like you are by far more likely to have a GoFundMe account for your cancer care than for you to become a billionaire. Period. You know, you're more than likely going to become bankrupt than suddenly hit it rich.
But Andy, the American dream.
Yeah. Well, what did George Carlin say? It's American dream because you have to be effing asleep to believe in it, right? I mean, that's exactly Carlin paraphrase right there.
It's very frustrating it's frustrating enough to deal with the broken medical system that we have. For myself as an adult, it's soul crushing to deal with it for your child. And having kids, I'm sure even for minor things it can just be so frustrating, because you're like, I can't fix this, I am not capable, I need you to fix this, and you're not working with me.
One of the things I like to point out when I'm talking to atheists and skeptics who aren't for universal healthcare, it's like, the most important thing that you can do to create a secular society is not to go on YouTube and yell at Christians. The most important thing you can do is go out and vote for universal healthcare, because that's going to be the thing that turns people away from religious fundamentalism to more of a secular society over the long term.
Oh yeah, and well, it takes some of the, from what I think is, it also takes some of the necessity out of people needing that community, because if we had more welfare systems in place to help people when they're down and out, how many people would not have to go to the church to get to the food pantry? They wouldn't need to go to the church to help them pay for a medical bill, or because their house burned down and now they're homeless. And while I do commend those communities for helping people when they're down and out, we shouldn't need that. They shouldn't need to do that.
It's a sign of a failure of the society. It's a sign of a failure of the government that you need churches to provide basic services to people. I was watching this ad, which gets me, of all the other things that get me inappropriately angry, there was this ad about feeding kids. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It plays on CNN, maybe during Jeopardy, but it focuses on these two young girls who are in school, and they're talking about their mom who has to work, and they say, well, we wouldn't probably have breakfast if it wasn't for this service. And it's an important service that supplies foods to kids who need food, but it's like, it gets me so angry. It's like, this is a private organization who is supplying food to children, and you would think that's a basic human rights paid for by the government out of the general fund, right? You would think that would be the case. And in fact, the best thing you could say for that kind of ad, it would be like, these two children, their mom works like 16 hours a day, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. They don't have food, and that's why you should vote for Democratic Socialists, or that's why you should vote for progressive Democrats. That's the tag for that commercial.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure if you brought that up to somebody on the right, they'd be like, well, we do have this welfare program and we have this welfare program, but most people don't realize, especially if they haven't used them in the past, that to qualify in the United States for most welfare programs, whether it's assistance with paying a heating bill or, food stamps, or WIC, which stands for Women, Infants, and Children. And what they do is they provide vouchers for pregnant women or nursing mothers, and children and infants under the age of 5 to help supplement their food. And they have stipulations with the food where you have to, like, the voucher will say what you can buy. So, like, it's healthy foods that most people, and this is another part of our messed up system, is healthy food is more expensive than junk food. So unfortunately, studies show when people have food stamps, because it's such a small amount of money compared to what, the average, upper middle class family would have for food, they have to make that small amount stretch. So they have to buy all these overly processed foods, junk food. Fresh fruits and vegetables are expensive. They spoil quickly. So WIC provides, so much in fruits and vegetables, so much in, canned fish, just because it doesn't expire as fast. Milk, whole grain breads, stuff like that. But there's a huge chunk of the population that won't qualify for that, because it all goes by income. So if a family, somebody in a family gets overtime, they could get bumped out for a couple months out of any of those programs because they made just a tiny bit too much. They're still struggling. They're still deciding to buy food or pay the bills.
Yeah.
And there's this huge chunk of our population that can't get any help unless it is through one of these religious organizations, because the government isn't helping them enough. The programs we do have are very helpful to the people that it can actually get them, but it's not enough, and it's not helping enough people. And sorry, that really grinds my gears.
And it should, because if anyone's ever tried to access services, there are barriers that are there to prevent you from getting those services.
And then we have the stereotypes that you constantly hear about from most people of, like, and I don't even know where these started, because, one of my family members worked in a grocery store as do the cashiering, and, they would tell me about, people using the food stamp card or the WIC checks and stuff like that. And, versus the stereotype where you hear of, oh, there's this woman with 1 million kids and she's wearing furs and diamonds, and my family member was like, yeah, that's never a thing. Like,
that's
these
not real.
People, that's never a thing.
That's just like another stupid conspiracy theory, right? That's in the category of Pastor Greg Locke thinking that there are witches in his congregation. Just lies told by the powerful to keep the weak in line. That's all it is.
Well, and it also creates such a stigma to get any of those programs, because our society, it's almost feels like Victorian era, like you're shamed for being on hard times. Yeah. So some people will make the choice to suffer instead of getting help, because there's so much stigma and shame attached to it. And I just find it just mind-blowing as somebody that considers themselves a humanist. Just like, why why should we make people feel bad because they have a hard lot right now? And most hard times are not forever. Most hard times are temporary, even if that temporary is years. The majority of people want to do better. They don't want to stay on assistance forever.
Right. And the thing is, and I'm going to start closing out the show in like a couple of minutes. The thing is that as there are less jobs that can actually pay a living wage, whatever reason, it's like the system as it is won't be able to really function. And you can see it isn't really functioning, right? People having to get 2 jobs, 3 jobs just to get by. And, it's either going to boil down to, and I think it's only a matter of time before we see universal basic income. You see some communities already flirting with it. We've talked about it on the channel a couple of times. But that's just going to become a new normal within, I hope, my lifetime. I don't know if I'm going to live long enough for it, but we'll see some kind of universal basic income.
Cross our fingers and toes. The only
Yeah.
superstitious thing I'll do to hope for that, because
Right.
I'm
you can only
for
vote
it.
so often.
I'll be voting for it.
Oh yeah, dude. All right, so I'm going to close things out. I'm going to do some work before going to work. I'm doing the same crazy thing tomorrow, Monday and Tuesday. I'm not here, but on next week, Wednesday, be doing the same gig. You guys got anything going on today? Anything exciting?
Dealing
Just-
with more medical providers.
It's a job unto itself.
I'm sure Tobin's doing something fun though.
Oh, I'm gonna continue working on my little projects. Keep on making it happen.
Good man. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Shamala Hamala. See you tomorrow.
Shamala.
Samala Hama.